Welcome to the Bibles.net podcast, where we have casual conversations with people whose ministries have changed our lives. Each episode, we introduce you to someone you'll want to meet, whose life and ministry can help you know and love Jesus better. We'll also answer a relevant question with a biblical answer and share with you some life-changing resources you'll want on your shelf. I'm your host, Eden, the editor of Bibles.net, who loves Jesus and believes he's the hope you need today. You guys have blessed our family, and I know are blessing many people around the world through your music. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about the movie that you're coming out with
Yeah.
and just all the hard work that went into that.
Well, thank you for the kind words. That's very, very kind of you. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I usually like to start interviews just asking, what are a few things that bring you joy?
Few things that bring me joy. Oh man, my wife and children. I got Courtney and I. We got four kiddos, and so between honestly spending any time with any of those little rugrats, I enjoy it. I try to bring one of them with me virtually everywhere we go because it's just life with kids is just that much more joyful. I don't want to sound overly you know, it shouldn't be overly religious because it just shouldn't be that way. Man, when I find the deepest part of my joy is when I feel the love and affection of a Heavenly Father, to be honest. I feel like you can go through a steel wall when you feel that joy.
Yes.
And so those would be some of the things that I would say bring me the most joy.
Yes, wonderful. Well, our website is created for people that didn't grow up in church, and we're
Okay.
trying to encourage people to get in God's Word. And I know that many of your songs are inspired from truths that come from Scripture and that your faith is deeply important to you. Is there a part of God's Word that's especially precious to you, either in the
Yeah.
season or over the course of your life?
Yeah, one of the chapters that I often say, if you want to learn how to follow Jesus, read Romans 12, and you
Mm.
just read it over and over and over and over again. Whenever I sign it, someone wants me to sign something, and if they want some scripture, that's pretty much always what I put because it's
Mm.
it's it's that transformative. So yeah, I think especially for new Christians, actually, I would say Romans 12 is a particularly potent, powerful passage of scripture.
Yes, wonderful. And so you've come out with this movie called Unsung Hero. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But for someone that may not be familiar with your music or what you do, tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day life looks like where the Lord has you serving him.
Yeah, so originally born in Australia, my brother Joel and I make up a band called For King and Country, and we've been doing that for like kind of like 12 years now, which sounds very odd to say because it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it's been that long. But and then over the course of the last, I've actually told our family story at virtually every performance that we've done as a band, and felt like I should approach a Hollywood producer about kind of working on a script about our particularly our parents' story. Joel and I were very, very little. It's more mom and dad than it is us. And at the end of the day, Joel and I, we were homeschooled, so we didn't grow up learning how to read books or write books very well. You know what I'm saying? So making a
Yeah.
movie sounds a little bit more fun. I'm kidding. That's not totally
Nice.
true. But we this film, if there was a thesis statement really behind the film, it would be
Mm.
this. Mother Teresa says, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And
Mm.
my hope is that this film will infuse the love of family, will infuse family's hard, and it's hard because it matters.
Mm.
I think you can apply that rule to almost anything in life. If it's easy, it's probably not worth much time or attention. If it's hard, it's probably very valuable.
Throughout the film, you talk, well, there's a line that's repeated about kind of pursuing your dreams, but not letting it become your master. Can you
Mhm.
expand a little bit on kind of just that sentiment throughout the film?
Yeah, like I think that I actually was just looking this up. I was watching a movie with my kids the other day. Do you remember the bobsled movie Cool Runnings? You may have
No,
not seen it, but it's
sounds
a pretty
very familiar.
interesting. Yeah, well, it's an interesting movie. It's a Disney movie. It was probably late '90s, early 2000s. It came out. Actually,
Mm.
no, early '90s, I think. There's a quote in there that is, I think, actually sums up the poem that you're talking about.
Mm.
And the film is about a Jamaican bobsled team, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But he says that this coach says to kind of the lead character, he says, "A gold medal is a wonderful thing. If you're not, but if you're not enough without one, you'll never be enough with one."
Hmm.
And I think that's actually what that poem is saying is man, it's great to chase your dreams, but if the dream is your master, you'll achieve the dream and you won't be satisfied. Because what happens is people forget this, is when you dream dreams, when your dreams become a reality, in the middle of your dream becoming a reality, you dreamt up another one. And so all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're like the rabbit with the carrot in front of its mouth. You just never enough. It's never. And so to me, the hope is that for all of us, that you can dream up these hopefully God ordained dreams,
Yeah.
but don't ever forget that it's not the achievement of a dream that makes you valuable. It's not the achievement of a dream that makes you worthwhile. It's
Mm.
man, that's already taken place. You're already loved. You're already good. That's one of the things I think in our family that we've always struggled with, is like, am I good enough? Well, the truth
Mm.
is, Jesus says you are. So you get to live with that every day. I've been joking around a little bit lately. It's like, man, following Jesus is like you're playing with house money every day. You cannot be defeated.
Yeah.
Any single day, you can have the worst of circumstances go on, and you're still as loved as you were the day before. And
Yeah.
nothing that you achieved or failed today makes you any more loved or less. So every
Mm.
day, you kind of live with this grand freedom,
Yeah.
And I think that poem is trying to illustrate that point.
Mm. And how did your parents kind of faith in you and encouragement of your gifts play in personally in your life to you kind of pursuing music and getting to the career that you have now?
Yeah, I mean, my parents were always big on, just exploring the different talents that you're given and just seeing where some of those things can go. I'll never forget the first time I'll remember where I was actually when I was asked to lead worship by myself at church.
Wow.
And I said no. Originally, I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't have blah 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 blah, and I can't do blah 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 blah. And I went back home, and mom heard about the call or something, and she was like, "Why wouldn't you do that?" Well, I don't
Mm.
feel perfectly equipped, and I don't feel blah 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 blah. And it was just like, well, yeah, the first time you do anything, you might not feel that way. But look, if you
Mm.
look at your training and you look at what you've done so far in the rest of your life, you are perfectly capable of doing it. Those are the types of things. I think parents, when it comes to career things, you're a guide. You just kind of help shepherd and guide. The
Mm.
moment that you're the one choosing things for your kids, that's a mistake. But if
Mm.
parents can be there to help, and apply encouragement when there's discouragement, and then hopefully maybe to create help, create a little bit of vision when there's a lack of vision of what things can do. But it's not up to a parent to decide for a child what they can and can't do. And I think our parents were really good at just applying that, guiding and applying that. Hey, well, why not? Why not you? Someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
Why couldn't it be you? And I think that was very, very helpful
Yeah.
in my life.
Wonderful. And you talked about how knowing the love of a heavenly Father and knowing that Jesus is for you and that he loves you really kind of gives you not only contentment and peace in life, but just the joy and the drive that you need to, live life to the full, as he says. When was the first time that you really knew the love of the Lord and came to know him?
Yeah, yeah. I was 8 years old actually. I was had been a little bit of a naughty boy. Apparently, I was lying to my parents about something. And I'd actually gone to church a few weeks prior, and in Sunday school, they went around the class and said, "Hey, if you've given your life to Jesus, raise your hand." And the teacher was very, very clear on, "Hey, it can't be your parents' faith. This is you individually." And she's like, "And if you don't raise your hand, there's no judgment there. I just want to know." And I recognized in that moment that I couldn't raise my hand. And so fast forward a few weeks, and I got into some trouble with my mom about lying. My dad had said, "Hey, you got to go apologize to your mom." And so I went and apologized to my mom. And it was just in that moment where I genuinely realized that I could not personally triumph over sin. And it
Mm.
was, in some cases, this is not a a super flashy,
Yeah.
rebellious prodigal son story. But I think in some cases, what a gift it was to have that be my moment, because some of those other stories come with a lot of other pain, a lot of other heartache. And for me, it was just in some cases my parents' love for me, and in some cases this Sunday school teacher who I do not know, bringing that up was something that really made me realize that I needed to do something myself, not for me, not based off of my family, but for me.
Mm, beautiful. And so the movie you just made, Unsung Hero, which comes out, I believe, April 26th. Is this right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Excited for that. It brought me to tears. It was beautiful. And just wonderful. I think one of my favorite things was seeing the way that your dad responded after things were so difficult. And I don't want to give things away, but I think that it was such a beautiful picture of love and forgiveness and just what it looks like to trust God through difficulty. Um, but I would love to hear kind of what are your prayers for this movie, like as it goes out, um, if anything could uh, happen as a
Yeah.
result of this movie, kind of what are your big dreams for where you want this to go and how you want it to affect people?
That happened to you. Well, let me tell you. All right. I'm going to tell you with Evie here. Can we do that?
Okay.
Yes. My hope is that people will look back at their families, and I think if we were to teach people how to forgive a little bit better, I think that's the most powerful weapon that we are
Mm,
afforded as people. We are an eye for an eye society. If you do this, I'll do this for you. If you don't do this, I won't do this for you. But forgiveness triumphs over all of those things. And I think if you look at most people have family wounds, pretty significant ones.
yes.
And if families just learn how to apologize, and look, we teach that as parents all the time. Hey, learn to say sorry, learn to do these things. But if it actually becomes really, really powerful and really, really real, it has generational consequences when
Yes.
people forgive.
Yes.
And so my hope is that people will see the value of family. As I said, I hope that people will start to see that Mother Teresa quote become true. Like, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. You don't need to. The other thing I love about this movie is my mom, for the most part, has never tried to. Who really is the hero in this film? She's
Yeah.
never really tried to be something other than what God called her to be.
Yeah.
And it's not something that's really been on a platform up until maybe the last few years. It's just her being faithful.
Mm,
And I think that people need to understand that that can have absolute huge impact in people's lives, just to be faithful with what God has given. And in some cases, being an unsung hero, that's the story of Jesus. He came
yeah.
to be served. He came to serve, not to be served. If we can get those things through our head and our families, I think there will be massive, massive impact. The worst thing that could ever happen is that we make a movie about families and our family doesn't feel loved,
Yes.
And my hope is that they will genuinely feel all of those things.
Yes. Wonderful. Is there a way that you practically kind of practice forgiveness in your own home or like try to relay these same things to your own kids? Just for maybe dads or moms that are kind of curious about, how would I kind of implement this in my own home
I
practically?
think that there's this temptation for parents to feel this, like, I'm right, you're wrong because you're my child and you're a
Mm,
kid. I think that if I was being totally honest, my wife and I, we have made mistakes in moments of parenting. One of the
mm,
greatest things that my wife particularly is better at than me is when that happens, she just goes and says, I got four kids: Jude, Phoenix, Leo, and Evie. Jude, Daddy, Mom made a mistake. I got
mm,
angry, and I'm really, really sorry.
mm,
Sometimes people get so caught up in the mistake that they made, but when you're teaching your kids forgiveness, that is far more powerful than the mistake you made maybe 5 minutes earlier,
yeah.
if there's an apology. If there's no apology, yeah, your kids just remember that pain. They just
Mm,
remember that, hey, dad got upset and he shouldn't have,
mm,
and I took the brunt of it. But if dad gets upset when he shouldn't have, and an hour later or 30 minutes later goes and apologizes to his kids, there will, for the most part, maybe not always, there will be no recollection of that mistake. All that they will remember is a father humbling himself to say, hey kids, I'm sorry. Just because I'm bigger does not mean that dad can just lord over you and make mistakes and not apologize. Dad needs to
Yes.
apologize as well.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, I think in closing, I'd love to ask, there's a proverb that says that the memory of the righteous is a blessing.
Yeah.
And so can you think of maybe two different times, one for mom and one for dad, that the memory of them and maybe the way that they parented you or spoke to you was a blessing to you that continues to bear fruit?
I would say this: my dad, when I was in high school, I would play on a basketball team, and a senior in high school, I was a freshman, came to me, and I worked my whole life, so I was known as the guy on the team that had money, and it may have only been a couple $1,000s, but I was known as the guy that had money, and so the senior in high school came to me, and said, "Hey, can you pay for my phone bill? My parents won't pay it." And I went to my dad, and I was like, "Hey, Dad, someone came to me and asked to borrow some money for a phone bill. Yeah, I'd always read that you don't lend money to friends. So I read it in a book somewhere or something like that, and I just don't know what to do in this situation because I feel like I should and I can, but I've just read this thing." And he just looked at me and he said, "Man, Luke, if you're ever given the opportunity to help someone, just do it."
Mm.
And I felt like that was, obviously there's times with addicts and things where helping can be hurting, and there's obviously scenarios where that isn't universally true. But I think most of the time it is true. Most of
Mhm.
the time it is, hey, just go and help people. Because
Yes.
sometimes us as Christians, we talk ourselves out of doing the right thing because of what we've heard or what we've read. Sometimes we
Right.
just need to go do the right thing and
Yeah.
allow whatever happens to be the outcome is the outcome. And look, from my mom, man, there's my mom, there's 7 kids, and particularly for the 5 boys, our mom has our utmost respect,
Mm.
because she has lived what she has preached.
Wow.
And my mom, it sounds weird to say, but my mom always disciplined me appropriately, and
Mm.
I'm a different person because, and when I say appropriately, some people are like, "Oh, was that spankings or whatever?" Well, yes, maybe it was, but I'm more talking about when I needed my mom to be a mom in the big moments of life. She didn't fail me. When I needed a mother to counsel me through heartbreak or whatever it might be, she was there in those moments.
Mm.
My mom was not a perfect mom,
Right.
but she was one that when I needed her to show up, she slayed it. She was batting 1,000.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, such a pleasure to meet you. And yeah, we'll just be cheering you guys on as you continue to put out wonderful, beautiful things into the world.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. If you enjoyed our conversation, I would encourage you to like or subscribe to our podcast so that you can hear the next conversation. And if something that you heard today spoke to your heart or got you thinking, I would encourage you to not let the day go by without talking to God about what's on your mind. We believe that He loves you and that He's pursuing you today out of that love.